Okay, well, welcome everyone to the Communicast on roleplay, specifically tabletop roleplay. We'll just do a quick intros. I'm the always a wonderful Blunderboy, and I have with me a selection of people of varying degrees of experience with roleplay. I have Chairman Meow with me.
Good evening.
I have the always popular and happy to talk about World of Darkness, Doppo.
Hello.
And some fappy guy who followed us in the channel and refuses to leave.
Goddamn Englishman. Yeah, what is up with that? I'm the only American here.
Well, you know, we're being classy this evening.
That's right. Let me put on my monocle. Hold on.
You had better have a cup of tea.
Tea's
Well,
gross.
I do have.
I honestly, I cannot stand tea. I'll be honest.
Yeah, I'm going to break the stereotype and say I don't like tea either.
Well, to stop... well, I love tea, but I'm not going to argue now, because we'll never get onto the subject. So, why don't we start with something Doppo suggested, which is, what is a roleplay?
Well, I guess if you want to go as general and broad as possible, it's simply taking on a role that isn't your own.
That works. I mean, it's like a game where you play somebody else, and it's pretty much a game. So you have rules, you have everything, but you are playing something like a theater.
Yeah, like it basically it ranges from all sorts of different things where it is in every case it is always fictional, obviously, because you are not that person, but you could be trying to emulate a realistic situation. Let's say you're, seeing a psychiatrist, or you're in a business and you're trying to role play out some kind of scenario to figure something out. Like that.
See, this kind of role play sounds more like something that belongs in a bedroom, Fappy.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, you can do it in a bedroom too, but like when you get more and more nerdy with it is when it gets more and more complex, complicated, and in my opinion, more fun.
Yeah, I put on my rope and wizard hat, so
Yeah.
I think it's quite important that, to be honest, role-playing and role-playing games mean different things to different people. I mean, as you just said, for you, the more complex and the more you take on the role, the better. But for me, the fun from a role-playing game is not so much in the role-playing, but in the game. I love all the stats and the tracking them, inventory, all that. I mean, it's really boring to some people, but I love statistics and things, and I love working out where I'm going to go from where I am now. And obviously I still enjoy the role-playing side, but that sort of falls on the sideline compared to the game for me.
See, in another direction, I'm really more there for the social aspect. I mean, I do it with a group of buddies, and I'm sure some people would get incredibly irritated about how long it takes us to get started or how often we get distracted sometimes, but I'm there to hang out and have an experience with these guys. So to me, it's really more the social element of these are the people. Yes, there is a lot of role playing, and it's weird when you see how you interact with each other as you actually are, and then how your characters interact. Because sometimes your character really, really hates someone else's character, but you really like the guy in question.
Yeah.
So you've got to be a dick to them without
like
being an actual dick.
Yeah, I like a healthy balance of the two, because the people I've traditionally played with are not the introverted nerd that doesn't have a lot to say. They're all the obnoxious assholes. So we're all talking and fucking around during games all the time. And when I'm DMing, I always have to slap them in the face and get them to pay attention. But when I'm a player, I'm actually probably as close to a rules lawyer as our group gets, which is kind of weird to think about, because I generally, when I'm DMing, I don't really care that much. But I really love the role play, but I do love getting into the number crunching. I've min-maxed before and everything, and come up when I'm playing. My sister hates having me in combat in her games because I always have broken characters. So
I think what you touched on there briefly is another thing. Just getting off track is something that can happen quite a lot in role-playing games. I mean, and just role-plays, and even in podcasts like this. And a problem that happened quite a lot in games I used to play was if I wasn't so familiar with the people I was playing with, I wouldn't know what kind of game they wanted. And so either I may end up, not taking it seriously enough or too seriously, and because everyone at the board or the table wants something a bit different from it, but we don't really know what we want from it, it can lead to sort of arguments. And I mean, we've had some pretty tense arguments at role-playing tables.
Yeah.
And pretty stupid too.
Yeah. See, the main thing about playing a role-playing game, and a lot of people don't understand this for some reason, it should be obvious, is that you want to have fun, and you want everybody else to have fun, and sometimes not everybody is going to be on the same page in what it means to have fun in the game. So you really need to find a group that complements your play style.
I think you see a lot, especially in forum role plays, where people, because there aren't as many rules as, say, in Dungeons and Dragons or something similar, people do god moding or whatever, and maybe not even completely, but they do stuff that's a bit unfair because they're playing to win rather than to have fun, and that just ruins it for everyone, including them, because by doing that, they're making themselves a bit of an outcast to the group because no one wants to deal with that person. I mean, I remember a thread a while ago on the Escapist saying about someone was just, like, they were building such a build that nobody else in the party was doing anything, and so it wasn't fun for anyone.
Yeah. I'm actually in a game like that right now, but that's only because barbarians are severely broken early game in Pathfinder. I'm the barbarian, by the way, and it's all core rules, can't go to any extra books or anything, and I didn't even min-max my strength. Barbarians are just barbarians, so that's my argument.
Yeah, D&D is just broken.
Yeah, you just give me power attack and I win.
What a darkness. What a darkness. We'll get on to what we all play in a bit, but first, I mean, how long have you guys been doing this? Because I only started sort of recently. I mean, late spring, early summer, so sort of March, April time. Finally got around. It's something I've been wanting to try for a while, but I've only been doing it for, say, 9 months, 9-10 months. Really been enjoying it, but I mean, have you guys been doing it for a lot longer, or are you fairly new?
I think I started. My stepdad, actually in high school, he was an enigma because he was like a really smart, business-oriented student who was very nerdy, but also played football, but played D&D. So he got me into it when I was young, and I didn't actually really play it all until about. Like, we experimented with it a little bit, but nothing serious RPing at all until about sophomore year of college, probably. So I'd say I've probably been playing for about 4.5 years. Something like that.
I'm sort of close. I discovered like role-playing games back in high school, end of high school, but I didn't have anybody to play with. And it was only when I started university that I found a group, which was 5 years ago now. Well,
Okay.
almost 5 years ago.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are in that position, and that's the main reason why a lot of people find it hard to start playing is because they don't have people to play with. And I've heard a lot of Sky 14 Camilla and some other people have talked about it, and we've done it a little bit with one of our members who's in the Air Force when he was overseas, play over like Skype and stuff like that. But I'd imagine that's just a huge pain in the ass, like needing to do that.
Yeah, I've heard it works, but I'm not sure how it works for everybody because
Yeah.
some people like it.
I mean, I've played. I don't know if you've heard the game Paranoia, but I played that a while ago. I did a campaign of that, and we did it entirely through like text on a chat server. We didn't have speech available at the time, and it was a great campaign. But so many problems arose from like people taking forever to type messages, or someone was in the middle of typing something, then someone typed something else, and you just got lost amidst a wall of text sometimes. And it's hard, but it's worth the effort, I think, if you can do it. I mean, obviously, if you like the kind of thing. If you don't like it, why bother? But I think the kind of people who like it really like it, and so I really think it's worth the effort.
Well, that kind of brings up a good point. Is actually a lot of people. I'm sure many of you guys have encountered it since you've been playing for a while. Is you'll always have some friends who want to hang out, and they'll try out the game, and they obviously just can't get into it, but the only reason why they stick around and play is because they want to hang out. So that D&D and other like tabletop games, they're time consuming, and you have to plan ahead. You have to be dedicated to actually run them and play them. So it can be a bit difficult to balance that if you've got, a decent sized group of friends that not all of them care about it.
Well, I mean, even if they do all care about it, one of the biggest problems I ever had was just that, our timetables wouldn't mesh up. They're trying to get 5 guys together at the same time. I mean, we tried to assign a day of the week, didn't work. I mean, if we tried to just do a different day every week or whenever, it would just be, okay, what about this day? Yeah, and then it would come close to the day and someone would say, oh, something's come up, I can't do it. And if just one person can't do it, I mean, you've got a choice of either playing their character for them, which is just, I never want to do that. I think that's an awful thing to do. Or you can just skip that day, and if you keep skipping days, it's going to get worse and worse, I think.
Yeah, precisely. And you get to, if you skip the day, you just go to the next week, and then something happens, and so on.
Yeah, we run into this problem constantly. It's probably our main issue we've consistently had for the last couple of years. And I was running a homebrew Mass Effect game that was very character oriented. So with the exception of one player who couldn't make it a lot of the time, and he wasn't as invested in the game as the others, so I didn't feel bad about leaving him out of sessions he told me to. If any of the other 3 players weren't there, I couldn't run it, period. Like, no question. So that was a really big issue. And one of the best ways to, I guess, go around that is if you're going to be playing a campaign and it's going to be hard to get everybody together, make sure you're running a campaign that you can logically and feasibly just forget people are there for sessions so you can play without them. Like, we use what we call the Gamers 1 rule, where if they're not there to play the game, their character just is somewhere else and we won't question it.
Like on a side mission or something, or taking care of something personal.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned you're doing a sort of prison-based RP at the moment, and I imagine obviously it's on the forum, isn't it? So it's not quite the same problem because it's over time anyway. But if that were a meetup session, I don't think I could think of a way for someone to conceivably just disappear from a prison for a while.
Yeah,
I mean,
well, forum RPs bring up an entirely different can of worms because you're dealing with a lot. Usually, you're playing with a lot more people. It depends on the RP, obviously. I just recently got back to forum RP, so I might be wrong on some things, but usually you're with a larger group of people. It's over a long period of time, and people are posting when they can. So sometimes it might take a really long time for somebody to respond to something. If there are multiple characters in a scene, the whole scene just kind of stalls. And, it's like, what do we do? He's not here.
I think it's a good time to mention the ways you can roleplay. So you can just meet up in person, or you can do it over Skype, or text-based, as the chairman said. I've played an RC campaign. It was fine. And you can do forum roleplay, as we have on the Escapist and so on.
Yeah, I remember back when Yahoo Instant Messenger came out and I was in middle school.
Oh, Jesus.
One of the first things I discovered was role-playing on there. I was like, what is this? This is awesome. So just imagine, like, I don't know if you guys ever did this because this was like ancient history at this point, but it was like you'd go into a chat room and there would be like 10, 20, 30 people in there, all with different characters in the same place at the same time. It was fucking anarchy.
Yeah, I had a similar thing on MSN groups way back in the day.
Yeah, man.
Where you had both sort of forum-based and chat room-based.
Thank God chat rooms died off. They were awful.
I kind of miss, the old days. Because, the first game I ever played, which I role-played in, was not traditionally a role-playing game. It was Warhammer. And because I was a kid, I think I was like 9 or something, but because I was that young, I was able to just really get into it, and I would like pretend to be a general and stuff. And I know it's not role-play in the traditional sense, but, me and the guy I was playing with, or whoever it was at the time, would just, we'd act out as though we were generals talking to each other and discussing the battle and stuff like that, and it was fun. And I miss that because, I had that sort of extra stretch of the imagination. I had I had more of a willing suspension of disbelief than I do now. Like, I could get into it more, even if what I was saying was like complete trash, because I was 9 and had no vocabulary and whatever. It was more fun for me, even if I probably sounded like a right idiot.
Well, I mean, thinking on the spot is something that can be really challenging for a lot of people. And I know so it's kind of in a similar vein with what you were saying, because I know when I DM and I'm role-playing a bunch of different characters at the same time, because that's what you do as a DM or GM, sometimes my mind just isn't where it needs to be, and I have NPCs say completely retarded shit. And my players, like, there are inside jokes that my players just make fun of me for from things NPCs have said. Like, in my first campaign I ran in the Mass Effect game, for whatever reason, I don't know why, I guess I just wasn't very creative or something. Every time something surprising happened, usually in a combat situation, to an NPC, the NPC would say one of two things. What the fuck? Or, holy shit! Every single time.
No, we had
You should just do what I do and steal lines from Aliens.
Oh, that works.
Just like,
yeah.
game over, man, game over.
That's a perfect one to use.
Yeah, that's a good one.
In regards to sort of quick thinking in situations, etc. Obviously, quite often in roleplays, it'll come up where you're thrust into a situation where your character isn't really expecting it, and you certainly aren't expecting to suddenly have to answer this question. So we came up with the guy running our werewolf game came up with an interesting solution which was, for each point of wit your character had, you had 30 seconds to think of a response. That sort of obviously wasn't in-game time, but you could go, right, okay, well, I've got like a couple of points I really need to focus.
That's super meta.
People that have got
That's
so
meta.
I know, but
I've heard
it
this rule
about 2 weeks later.
Yeah, I've heard this rule, but it was like 1 second per point of wit. So, and you have a maximum of 5.
Jesus Christ. See,
yeah, he was a bit more generous.
I wouldn't be too keen on that rule.
See, playing
about 10
witty
seconds per point.
Playing witty characters can be very challenging, especially when you're a dim-witted person.
Maybe for you.
No, I mean, I'm pretty good at it. I won't lie, I'm pretty good at it.
No, I was joking. But what you were saying, that rule, to me, it sounds like it'll just end up making the game a bit too rigid. I mean, I played with my brother in D&D 3.5 a while back, and he had a whole campaign he wrote himself, and he had it all planned out, and it was really meticulously planned out. But the second something went off track, he had no idea what he was doing. And he sounded really robotic, just like reading all these descriptions.
See, I used to be more loose, where I just make an outline and just fucking wing everything else. I'm more structured these days, but one of the things you need to do as a GM is you need to be able to come up with anything on the spot. Just, you need a name for an NPC. His name is fucking Sam. Whatever. You deal with it, PCs. All right.
No, it's our DM, our current game, quite luckily, is very episodic. So I suspect he's always got sort of 2 or 3 episodes that are ready to go, and depending what we choose to do and how we choose to react or where we choose to go, he'll put one of them out for us, or give us a couple of leads to follow, and then see which one we focus on. So quite often we'll be like, right, okay, well we can do it next week as well, because he's already got it not so meticulous that it can't handle the odd shake-up, or if someone's away we can't do something without their character. But the modular design he's got going at the moment seems to be working quite well.
What I found works best...
I think it is really... I'm sorry.
Yeah, what I found works best is if you have a general plan for the campaign, and then have planned like missions, and whatever the players do, you just choose a mission and run it. You don't plan it ahead.
That's similar to what I do, actually. I actually wanted to ask how many of us have actually GM'd. It sounds like all of us, but Blunder have, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I have not.
I have, but my experience isn't greatly extensive. It's just, I think probably about 2 campaigns, maybe.
Because I wanted...
Yeah, me too.
I wanted to...
Yeah, I've had a...
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. I've had a single campaign in Vampire the Requiem, and I've had the odd sessions here and there with other people, but that's it.
Yeah, what I wanted to like kind of get across is like I don't know how I assume a lot of DMs understand this, but I'm sure a lot of players don't if they never DM before. But basically, something that a lot of DMs do is that you either give your players a lot of choices, which I really like to do. It can alter the path of the campaign dramatically, and obviously players like having choices. It is a role play after all, but you also need to keep in mind that if you have a very structured plot, you shouldn't just railroad your players because that's bad form. They won't like that. They want to do stuff on their own. What you need to do is master the art of giving them the illusion of choice, which a lot of video games have done. And the way I like to do it is I kind of combine the two, where I do actually give them a lot of choices. If I prefer one choice over the other in terms of telling a story, I will give them some kind of like I will hint or kind of argue a point sort of in game, kind of just kind of steer them towards a direction I want them to go in, but not necessarily tell them exactly that's what you need to do.
What I prefer to do when I'm DMing is, rather than take it out of game at all, or even try and negotiate in game, I just try to make whatever option I want them to take the more attractive one. Either by making it have some kind of reward, or making the others seem like they're too much of a risk. I mean, the problem with making it seem like a risk is that there are people who will, it's like, oh, there's a dragon, awesome, let's kill it. Or, there's always someone who wants to try and mess with the status quo, so that can be a problem as well. But I just think taking it out of the game, you completely destroy the illusion of choice, because they're just going, okay, he's giving us a choice, but then he's telling us we have to take this one.
Yeah. I actually, in my last, in the final Mass Effect campaign, because it was like a trilogy, I kind of said it...
Was the ending really bad?
See, that was the thing. I promised them that my ending would be better than the real Mass Effect 3 ending. Because the first campaign took place... let me see if I remember. Yeah. The first one took place before the first game. The second one took place between the first and second, and the third campaign took place during the third game. So they were literally, like, at the end of the third game, like, coexisting with it, I guess. But anyway, so I gave them a number of choices in this campaign. Most of them were actually solely on a single player, because he was, like, their squad leader. And he was making choices without the other characters' knowledge, and in some cases the players, because I know a lot of people, or not a lot, but some people don't like to exclude players from a roleplay conversation if their characters aren't there, which in most cases is never necessary. But if it's a very plot sensitive thing, like if there's a twist you want to put in there or something secret with a character, sometimes it's necessary to do that. And
oh, definitely.
So I pulled my friend aside like multiple times through this campaign, because basically the bad guys were trying to recruit him, essentially, is what was going on. And he actually had a point, or one of the major choices in the campaign was betray your party. Literally kill them all, essentially, is what the choice was. And he could have gone either way, honestly. And since it was a very character-oriented plot, where like their backstories were the story, essentially, his character had developed from a very ends justify the means renegade type guy to not necessarily Paragon, but definitely caring more about other people. And so
yeah,
if he had, because there was a very good logical argument for him to betray them, if he hadn't made that character development since the first campaign, i.e. if he made this choice earlier, like in the first campaign, he would have killed his party. And I thought that was really cool, and they liked it a lot. So,
I think that that is when things are at their best, when you have like a logical development, when a character really has character. And if someone asked you, about that character and said, oh, do you think your character would like ice cream or something? You would know, because you know other things about them. You know their entire backstory. You know their decisions they've made. You know how they got where they are. And so because of that, it makes the improvising so much easier if you do get into a conversation with someone.
Oh, definitely.
I think this would definitely going to segue nicely into our creating characters topic, which we'll come to in a second, I think.
Yeah, I just wanted to say one last thing before we get to that, is just going off of what you said, Meow, is in that campaign, actually, my friend was playing a Krogan, and that was, all of my friends agree, that was the most realized player character that we've ever had in any of our games. We've played a lot of different campaigns and different systems and stuff, and this character, he had a perfect, full, amazing, arcing, rainbow arced character arc that ended with his character sacrificing himself to save his daughter and all his friends and everything. And it was...
That's amazing.
It was beautiful. he was basically... He didn't cry, okay, but he had to mentally prepare himself because he saw that his character might need to do this by the end. So he had to mentally prepare himself for his character's death. And it was tragic, but it was beautiful.
One thing I'd just quickly like to mention, I know you were trying to move on, Blunder, but it was just it sprung into mind that often when DMing, well, not often, but sometimes you do have to fudge roles.
I do it all the time.
For example, I was playing one campaign, and one of our party members was a really arrogant thief, and I think the city we were in was under attack or something, and he was like, okay, I'll scale the building and check out the defences. And he started to climb the building, and the guy who was DMing didn't fudge the roll, so he fell off and immediately died.
That's awesome.
And from that point, it's like, what are you supposed to do? We're a party member down. There's literally nothing we can do, because he didn't just, get unconscious or seriously wounded. He was outright dead. And
yeah,
it's just like, we couldn't go resurrect him or anything because, we were in the middle of a siege. So it was just, I don't understand why he didn't do that. But
there are two things that most guides will always tell you, published a game master's guide or whatever. The first rule is to have fun, and the second rule is the rules aren't the end all be all of everything. So obviously in that scenario,
all of them start with that.
Yeah, exactly. I think in that scenario, your DM didn't read the first two rules in the book. Both rule number 0 and rule number 0.1.
No, rule number 0 is different.
Hilarious.
It is, yeah.
What's rule 0?
Yeah, rule number 0 is different. Rule 0 is DM is always correct. But
that's right.
Number
okay.
1 is
I'm
have
sorry,
fun.
you're right. You're right. You're totally right.
More people need to be aware of rule 0.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Even when not DMing, it's just like someone starts an argument over a bad roll or something, and it's just like, shut up, I don't care. I mean, yes, it's bad for all of us, but can we just get on, or this will never end?
I mean, hell, the
Yeah.
second time I ever role-played, I managed to completely screw up the GM's game, because basically it was in World of Darkness. I'd created a pilot, because we were humans, and we would be fighting a zombie apocalypse, essentially. And I'd created a pilot, and his intro was about a plane crashing, so I was the pilot, and I had to roll to fly the plane, and I failed the roll, so the plane crashed.
That's awesome.
We survived, but yeah. In fact, it was integral to the story that the plane did crash, and it didn't have any fuel in it. But for weeks later, I was still getting shit about having crashed the plane. Despite having since successfully flown helicopters, people out of the country, no matter how much and how good I get at flying in that game, I am still constantly teased for crashing the plane at the start.
Yeah, when I first played it... Okay, go on.
I was just going to say that I think an event like that is absolutely brilliant for character development, because although it's just like a blank template for coming up with a reason why you crashed that plane. I mean, if you are supposed to be a skilled pilot and you crashed a plane out of nowhere, you can think of a cause for that and you can make that a part of your character. I mean, moving on to what you were going to say is just character creation, I think, should be natural, because then they become a natural character rather than this artificial list of tropes that you just put together at the beginning of a game.
My favorite one
totally.
is your home village was destroyed by dragons. And the best twist on that is my sister once had a character whose village was created by dragons and then destroyed by minotaurs. Because all of the wizards protecting the village only knew the spell maze, and minotaurs are immune to the spell maze.
That's awesome.
Brilliant.
No, my first character was awful, because my first character was in Mage. I've only ever played World of Darkness. It's kind of a bit of a fudge between the new and the old. But yeah, my first character was in Mage, which is a game we've not gone back to. But basically, I think I did the classic rookie mistake of sort of going through the literature going, oh, that's a cool power, that's really cool, I want to do that as well. Rather than going, right, who was this person before any of this shit happened? Like who was this?
Yeah.
Who was this? And then from there, you build up what skills they would have access to, not just what you would like them to have access to.
I think most people at the start did something like that. I mean, my first character was basically Arnold Schwarzenegger, so I can't really say anything. Unfortunately, I can't do
Conan
the Arnold Schwarzenegger pain noises, but it was more of a amalgam of Commando and what's that one? The Christmas one. Jingle All the Way.
It's an amazing amalgamation of Arnie.
Well, you see, like, I think you obviously don't want to go into a character with the build as like the end-all be-all of your character when you come up with the like creation of them, but I don't think it really matters where exactly you start, because I think 50% of everybody's D&D characters they've ever made were made because they asked the question, hey, what are you guys playing? Oh, we need this class. Okay, I'll make a character based off this class. So
Yeah, D&D is bad like that.
Yeah, World of Darkness doesn't really have classes at all.
Yeah, on the other hand, the World of Darkness I found is bad because it has all these cool powers and you want all them, so you try to justify them.
Oh, dude, that's fucking Exalted has one of the most complex and crazy rule sets I've ever seen. Like the skill trees and stuff in that game are just completely out. I have no clue how that game is even remotely balanced.
I don't think it is.
A lot of role-playing games have that sort of high level of entry, and they take a lot of commitment to get into. I mean, I remember my first look at D&D 3.5, I just stared at it for about an hour going, what the fuck is this?
Dude, 3.5 has so much. They just jam-pack so much shit into that rule set now. It has like a million
most
extra
of the stuff
books.
we ended up playing had none of those rules in, because it's like we never used grapple and things like that. There was just so much that was not needed. I mean, grapple's a cool thing to have, but mostly useless.
Players don't need
You
it.
can just wing it.
Players don't need it, but grapple's really important if you ever fight a giant monster, because they grapple a lot.
Yeah, I suppose. But that's just reminded me of something funny that happened. We were in a sort of enchanted maze of sorts, and there was a Displacer Beast, and they have like, I think they have like camouflage 40% or something. I can't remember what it's called. It's been a long time since I played that, but someone tried to bull rush it on the edge of this platform and missed because of the camouflage, and so he just bull rushed off the edge of the platform to his death.
Concealment.
Yeah, I can't remember what it's called, but Displacer Beasts have like camouflage 50% or something like that,
awesome.
chameleon 50%.
That is
And so he just
awesome.
bull rushed off a platform to his death.
See, these make me feel a lot better about all of the stupid stuff I have managed to do in roleplay.
D&D is 50% PCs killing themselves. Like it just happens. Like
It's not as
Usually
bad as Paranoia.
the best way to kill players is to have them kill themselves.
Because then they can't blame you.
Exactly.
But what I was going to say, sorry, before I segued myself, was that sounds painful. Was that I once tried to get my fiance into the sort of Dungeons and Dragons and role-playing games like World of Darkness and things, and I just looked at them and I went, okay, she's quite severely dyslexic. There's no way I'm going to get her to read a rule book full of numbers. And so I sort of invented my own little homebrew game with really simple rules just to get her into it, and she really enjoyed it. And then
I
we tried to
remember
up to
participating in
something
that
else, and it was
topic.
just-
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that wasn't the particular one that I got her to play, but I tried to do it again, it didn't work. But she liked it the first time because it was even simpler than that. But
Yeah, see, my girlfriend is kind of the opposite of that, where she plays D&D with us occasionally, and she she likes the idea of role playing and the story and stuff, but she doesn't like role playing herself at all. She's all about just killing stuff and looting them, which is kind of strange to think about. Like that's usually
she can play Munchkin.
like she is a huge JRPG person, so I guess that's where it comes from.
Does she also enjoy hearing the lamentations of the women?
Yes.
If she's a JRPG person, I'm sure she stayed for ages as just killing giant rats.
Yes. She grinds all the time.
Okay, well, as we've sort of already touched on the subject, why don't we discuss our best moments, whether they're a brilliant moment of success our characters have enjoyed, or just something ridiculously retarded we've managed to pull off.
I think we should separate this into a player experience and then a DM experience. We'll start with the player one, since you've only done player.
That's very kind of you.
But you go first, Blunder.
Well, I've had a couple of interesting achievements in my time. Probably in terms of a combat experience, we did a sort of side mission where we encountered some horrible sort of beastie that was kind of kicking everyone's asses, but we got around to it. It was a pretty interesting fight, and at the end, I managed to yank the tongue out, causing it to die horrifically, while two other werewolves held its jaws open, sort of for like letting me get purchase and grip.
Oh God!
And we sort of, yeah, it was pretty gross. My other ones, probably the first proper full-on fight we had in Werewolf was my character himself like no single character did anything, supremely impressive, but it was just the way that instinctively, without any open discussion about it, we all fell into a role and came up with an on-the-spot tactic that worked really, really well. We had two guys in the centre, just basically getting all the aggro, all the attention, and ripping these vampires to pieces, and everyone else was sort of either dealing with a priority target or sort of hemming them in towards us. And as I say, it all happened without any planning. We all just fell into those roles. On the other side of things, I once had to infiltrate an office building, and bearing in mind my character's a biker, so it doesn't exactly look like he belongs. I failed to waylay a delivery driver, so I had to just walk up to the security office and ask them and just basically blag and say I was here to repair a printer. Probably with the GM taking some sympathy on me, that worked, and I managed to get in. But because I wasn't entirely clear on exactly what I was looking for, I just was sort of stood in a cupboard for about 5 minutes and then went out and got the other guys to come with me. That whole mission did not go well. Luckily, the rest of our team had more success elsewhere. But in Werewolf, you get given a guru name, a sort of a tribe nickname. And from that day forward, my name was Must Try Harder.
Oh God. That, with before I jump into the player side, I just want to mention, this is a DM1 story, but in the Mass Effect games, my friend was playing a Solarian special agent type of guy, and he was in those situations all the time where he was just making knowledge checks to BS shit and dress as janitors and stuff like that. They were doing reconnaissance and crap like that constantly. And on one particular mission, one of his best moments that we talk about all the time is there was an alarm they were in a refinery. An alarm had gone off because one of the other players was a total jackass and got himself caught because he was jumping over the fence in somebody's fucking backyard like a creeper. So I don't know what he was doing, but anyway, he gets knocked unconscious and taken away. The alarm goes off. People are freaking out. They all run out of the refinery except for one guy who's guarding a special door, and that's where the party needed to go. And so the Solarian goes up to this guy, and he's like, I need to get in here ASAP because people are going to come back immediately, and I need to be in here, blah, blah, blah. So he goes up to the guy, and he starts making small talk with him, and he's like, yeah, I don't know what's going on. And this guy starts talking about how his, my friend is trying to hurry him up, and just get him out of the way. But this guy starts talking about his daughter. He's like, yeah, it's my daughter's birthday. You want to see a picture of her? And so as he's pulling out the picture, my friend is just like, all right, I don't have time for this. And he just stabs him and pushed him in the door and closed the door behind them. Oh,
That
man,
is
it
fantastic.
It was fucking brutal. It was so
That's
funny.
brilliant.
And I
mean-
that was in the first campaign, and in the second campaign there was an entire mission they went on that the party, basically the guy who had fucked up and triggered those alarms, was blamed for the murder of this guy. And the wife of this guy was the leader of Terra Firma, and if you know anything about Mass Effect, they're extraordinarily xenophobic. So she was this spokesman for Terra Firma. She identifies the other character, and she's like, oh my god, that's the guy who killed my husband. He's been wanted in human space for like months or whatever. And so he ends up getting captured again for the other player's crime.
That is fantastic.
It was great.
But now I'm getting more and more used to the character and his roles. I now know that there are easier ways that he would deal with it, and because he's obviously a biker, he can handle himself in a fight, but he's also quite a good manipulator. But again, now I've got a better grasp on him as a character. I realise that doesn't necessarily mean he'd manipulate anyone. He's more at home with the criminal element. So sort of if there's a local gang or some connection there, he's better off doing it that way than just walking up going, "Hi, I'm here to repair a printer."
Yeah.
But no, last time we left off, we were attacked by a particularly nasty creature from World of Darkness, which I'm sure Dopo will be familiar with, called a Nexus Crawler.
Oh.
Yeah, shit got serious, man. It broke through the Umbra. It's there. And in an effort to get its attention, because I am a brawler, I've basically jumped on its face. Which is a bad move, probably, but most of the rest of the sort of pack aren't as good at soaking up damage as I am. I'm very much a tank, so I'm trying to basically keep it focused on me. But we stopped just as I jumped on its face, and we've been trying to organise a session since, and it keeps falling through, and that's been about 3 weeks. So in my head, I've spent 3 weeks grasping onto the face of a Nexus Crawler.
Well, in one of my friends' games, I have been trapped in the abyss with another player for like 6 months now, waiting for the next session. So, yeah, but
Must be lonely there.
do what?
Must be lonely.
Yeah, it's I thankfully it is not in game 6 months, because we'd probably be dead. But
Yeah, what's that saying? I can't remember who said it. It was something about hell is spending 6 months in a room with your friends or something.
I have no idea.
Hell is other people.
But I can't say I've had any good DM or GM moments, but one particularly hilarious player moment was in the game Paranoia. I mean, I don't know how familiar you are with it.
I am.
One of the ways you can play, I think they call it Zap, and it's wacky and ridiculous, and you die every 5 seconds, and you buy clones in 6-packs, so it doesn't really matter how many times you die as long as you can still afford to buy another 6-pack of clones.
That's pretty awesome.
But the basic premise is that the computer is your friend, and the entire world is run by the computer, basically. And there are different security clearances. The lowest is infrared, which are basically just drugged up drones. The next level up is red, and red usually are in that position because they were an infrared and they reported on some communist activity or something. And you all start the game as red clearance, and basically even seeing something that's a colour of a clearance higher than yours is illegal and makes you subject to termination.
I think I've heard of this game
So
before.
you can't even look at purple stuff. Yeah, it's a hilarious game. I mean, you can play it serious as well, but I've never tried it.
I don't think it works. Serious.
But everyone, when they start, is a member of a secret society, and obviously all the secret societies are illegal and makes you subject to termination, and is also a mutant, and being a mutant is illegal and makes you subject to termination. And you spend the entire game both working with your friends and trying to get them outed as a communist slash mutant slash
awesome.
member of the Def Leopards or whatever. And I think that there is actually a clan called something like that in it, I think, but I can't remember it exactly. But the computer gives you missions and you go out on them, and I think you're called troubleshooters, which is a terrible pun. But in this mission, we were partway through it, and someone like opened up a can of drink, and inside it was some kind of tentacle monster, which burst out. Laser guns in Paranoia are notoriously unreliable, more likely to blow off your arm than anything else. But one of the people in my party tried to fire it at anyway and missed. Luckily, he didn't explode. I realised that was really dangerous, and rather than risk that, I thought I'll try get away with using my mutant power, and my mutant power was pyromancy. And when you use a mutant power, it's kind of random what happens. And I ended up glowing red and incinerating my party member along with the tentacle beast. So they immediately accused me of being a mutant, which was fair enough, because it was kind of obvious at that point.
He's a mutant. Get him.
One of them tried to shoot me, the one whose turn was still left, and blew his hand off. So we just spent ages trying to kill each other, and eventually, like, I think I had no legs. One of them had no hand, and the other one was just like beating me to death with a plant pot or something.
Oh God!
But it's an amazingly ridiculous game. I mean, obviously you can't get much room for role-playing in there because of the fact it's so ridiculous, but it can still be very fun.
And I thought two werewolves having a sword fight with motorbikes was awesome.
I know, right? I mean, like, even when you're not playing a completely insane game, like, I'd say probably the most insane system I played in was Exalted. Like, when you go back to basics, insane shit still happens in D&D, and most of my crazy stories as a player are probably from Pathfinder D&D. Like, I had this, well, everybody knows or should know that monks are, like, they just break all the rules in D&D. They just don't fit the rules like everybody else, and they can just do whatever they want, right? So, we were fighting this, like, witch hag in a swamp who was flying and had hexed our rogue so that any damage that we dealt to her would be dealt to him as well. So that was bad. We couldn't kill her without killing him. So I came up with a brilliant idea of beating her until she was unconscious, because with unarmed strikes you can do non-lethal damage and knock somebody out instead of killing them. But she was flying, and I was using some weird build where I didn't actually have high jump, so I couldn't jump like a freak, like a Dragon Ball Z character, unfortunately. But my friend was playing a summoner, and he had this giant, like, four-armed Goro cat monster as his summon. And it was pretty tall. It was like 12 feet tall or something like that. She was pretty high in the air, but I had a pretty good acrobatics check. We figured it all out, and I do this running jump off of his shoulders up into the air and just barely grapple this naked witch swamp hag while she's in mid-flight, and I start just punching her in the face over and over and over again. And she dimension doors way up into the sky, trying to, like, get me off. I don't fall off, and we, as a monk, because monks don't wear armor, and I think I had, like, nunchucks were, like, my backup weapon. Like, I used just unarmed strikes all the time. And I had, like, barely any gear on me because I'm a monk. So almost all of my weight was coming from my body weight. And we actually had to calculate her strength score and the strength of her fly spell in terms of how long it could stay in the air before it starts descending because of my weight being added to hers. And it's the only time ever that my character's weight has ever mattered. And my character's weight was literally 5 pounds over her limit. So she starts descending, and eventually she falls into the arms of this four-armed giant cat monster who rips her in half as soon as we dispel the hex. It was fucking awesome.
I've just got this image of, like, you know, a monk sort of not the Eastern monk, but more Western monk, just beating on a flying hag with this rogue on the ground, getting hit by invisible punches, just going,
That's pretty much what was happening.
Like a priest.
I'd have just tried punching the rogue, see if it hits her.
No, it doesn't work
No,
that way.
it's a hex.
Oh, it's worth a shot.
Unfortunately, unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. But
yeah, just don't check first, just hit him.
Yeah, if you're ever running a Pathfinder game and somebody says they want to be a monk tank, tell them no, because I totally just ruined my sister's final encounter. We were fighting. Well, granted, she was making us fight something way too strong because we were all overpowered, but it was a CR20, which CR20 implies an enemy that you should be around like level 18 or 19, like near max level to fight, right? And so extraordinarily high level Rakshasa, which is like this tiger monster thing that can cast spells. And we were like level 12 or something like that. And she didn't give it all of its spells, because if it had all its high-level spells, it would have totally annihilated us. But it still had ridiculously powerful spells. And my sister was a total bitch, and this Rakshasa happened to be a Mystic Theurge. And what Mystic Theurges do is they can cast 2 spells in the same round, which nobody else in the entire game can do, because they can cast both Divine and Arcane spells simultaneously. And this thing was extremely powerful, so both spells that were going to come out of it were going to be really good. And thankfully monks are overpowered as shit, and my saving throws were really good, because she hit me with 3 spells in a row, 2 in the same round, and then the third the next round. 3 spells in a row, all extraordinarily high level spells. For people who know, it was like 7th or 8th level spells, and I'm like a level 12 monk. I managed to roll 18, 19, 20 on my saves. I would have, if any of those spells hit me, I would have died. And one of the spells was, I think it was Disintegrate or something. Even though I saved, I still took almost all of my health and damage. and then I stun locked the boss with Stunning Fist. It was glorious. I stunned him for like 3 rounds and we finished him.
Nice.
Yeah, I think my favorite time as a player was when I played a Ninja Burger game, and I talked to you about it before, but I didn't finish. Yeah, basically in Ninja Burger, you play as ninjas who deliver burgers or fast food. Yes, and you have to deliver it within 30 minutes in-game time, or you do a seppuku.
You have to commit suicide.
Yeah, that's the game, man. And also, you must not be seen, otherwise you lose honor. And if you lose 10 honor, you also commit suicide. And you have to fight the rivals of the Ninja Burger franchise, which is Samurai Burger and Pirate Pizza and stuff.
That's great. It sounds a lot like I think it's an independent film called The Gamers.
Yeah, they were playing Ninja Pizza.
Second one called The Gamers too. Yeah, and it was a bunch of ninjas trying to deliver more pizzas than the other ninja, while pirates were trying to kill them.
Oh, that movie's awesome.
And I would play that game, but it's so bad but so awesome at the same time, and I thoroughly recommend both The Gamers and The Gamers 2.
Well, you really appreciate that movie if you play role-playing games, because they bring up so many, like, they make light of so much shit they had to go through. Like the whole thing where the guy wants to play a monk, and the DM's like, there are no monks in my setting, what the fuck? And he just won't take no for an answer.
Oh yeah, and then it's like, he is not an elf!
Are you?
Yeah,
I'm a chick, are you hot?
I can't say I've ever had that experience, but...
I haven't seen that movie.
I do recommend it. There's a particularly funny bit in the first one where the rogue is just like trying to crawl into this dungeon, and then he sets off a trap and nearly dies, and then he's just like, what the fuck? I would have detected that trap. I'm like a master rogue. Why didn't I detect that? And he's like, you didn't say you were checking for traps. Well, it's implied. I'm always checking for traps.
Search for traps, Pookie.
And they just have this huge argument about it.
Yeah.
Check for traps.
My first time when I played actually my first role-playing game was, I played a rogue in a D&D game, and I had this really big like search for traps skill, because I was hired by the party to search for traps in like a dungeon or something, and I managed to I managed to activate I think every single trap I searched for, which made me quite incompetent. It was quite hilarious though. There were it was like we go into the dungeon. I set off a trap. I fall unconscious. They drag me out. The next day, I go into the dungeon, set off a trap. They drag me out.
That is
Well,
no good.
you're still doing your job, even if it takes forever.
Yeah, it's not the most efficient way, but you're still finding the traps.
Well, you know what really
Yeah.
breaks trap finding? If you bring a bouncy ball. 'Cause then
Oh god.
you just stand at the end of a hallway and you throw the bouncy ball down the hallway. The trick is finding a bouncy ball in a D&D setting.
Cats.
I
Chuck
can't
cats
imagine
down
that would work, though.
Yeah.
Because,
We-
I mean, a bouncy ball's chances of hitting a tripwire or being heavy enough to weigh down a pressure plate, I'd imagine, are pretty low.
You gotta make it a
Cats.
magical bouncy ball.
We had this.
Bouncy ball of trap finding plus 10.
Yeah, in that game we had a ex-angel or something. He was floating off the ground and he wasn't triggering pressure plates. So he walks on a or like over a pressure plate, doesn't set it off. I walk over it and I die or like fall unconscious.
We actually just played a game recently where we went to this like catacomb thing. It was an old ruin of some kind, and our paladin was a total retard. And just our rogue had been checking for traps the entire time, and this paladin just goes charging into this room and fucking almost dies because there's just a pressure plate in the middle of the floor. Happens to step on it, and then all the walls start closing in on him. We're like, come on, man. Wait for the rogue. What are you doing? I'm the
Don't be
barbarian.
that
I'm
guy.
even being patient.
I think that if you're DMing something like that, you need to make sure if you're having traps, you have them a lot or not at all. Because, you know, having no traps, and then a trap out of nowhere is just, you know, it's like if you're playing a video game and then up to that point, nothing. You're watching a cutscene and then suddenly, oh look, Krauser's attacking you with a knife. Press all the buttons.
Yeah,
I
that's
disagree. It's kind of the point of a trap to be out of nowhere, surely.
Well, I think the one thing you need to do is kind of a compromise of that is if you're going to have traps in your game, make sure you tell the players that somebody needs to be able to handle them. Because if you want to have
Yeah.
traps in your game and you have no players who can handle them, then you're not going to have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Then everyone
that
died
was
in the
the-
prologue.
That was the whole reason I picked a rogue, because the TM was like, oh, there would be a lot of traps in this campaign, and I was like, okay, I'll roll rogue, and yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. I find rogues can be fun, but, you know, they're like any class. They have their ups and downs.
Something I try to do when I'm doing traps as a DM is I don't like them when they're literally just, okay, roll your search for traps skill or whatever. I like to make them so, you know, it's a puzzle or, you know, it can be solved by logic. Because if it's just a roll, then there's no decision made by the players. It's literally just, you walk into a room, do you find the trap? No, you blow up. Did you find the trap? Yes, you disarm it. There's no decision, it's just one way or the other. And I think that kind of misses the point of the game for me.
I actually usually...
Yeah.
I don't use traps that much. When I do, they're almost always teleportation traps for some reason because I just like fucking with my players more than, you know, killing them. And I had this particularly annoying series of traps once where they were in a labyrinth full of minotaurs. And basically I modeled it after... If you guys ever played the original Red and Blue Pokemon games, do you remember the Sylph Tower?
Yeah.
Alright,
Yeah.
yeah, so
And
instead
I
of...
haven't played it.
Well, instead of platforms that made you spin uncontrollably, they would teleport you to different parts of the labyrinth. Yeah, that was funny. The party got split up really fast. Well, it was Minotaurs and it was also Mimics. And, yeah, they got attacked by, like, the piano from Mario 64 attacked them. And some other stuff like that.
Oh.
Just
I
cruel.
love that.
Yep.
It's more
I
fun.
played in a I played in a vampire game, and that was a Sabbat game. And just a bit of background, I don't know if you know it. Like, the Sabbat are basically vampire terrorists, and they do this tactic of picking up random people, turning them into vampires, and just releasing them on the city just to spread mayhem. And we played
That's pretty
these type
awesome.
of characters. Yeah, that's called shovelheads because they beat them with a shovel beforehand. And we just managed to go to the chantry of the Tremere, which are the vampires who do magic, and they had magic traps, and we set off some of them. There was one that teleported us on the roof, like on the ceiling, and we walked upside down, and we couldn't interact with anything. It was weird.
That sounds awesome.
I actually just realized I haven't done my GM story yet because I had a really good one that I tell all the time. Because it's basically the perfect example of when a rule set is just complicated enough so that your players can make you have like the worst migraine of your life. And basically, the setup was it was near the end of a campaign, and they were fighting. I don't remember what they're called. They're like these Chinese vampires that hop. They're like they have different vampire rules. Like they get hurt by like rice and stuff like that. But anyway, so they were fighting this Chinese vampire and these two undead. I think they were samurai or fighters. Anyway, so you had like two bodyguards with them, and the party was consisting. Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, okay. So they were fighting one of those, and he looked like Shang Tsung because, of course, right? And so we have we have a cleric and a fighter. So we have two like martially oriented people, and then there was a wizard and a druid. The fighter and the cleric, this was easy. They just go straight for the two bodyguards, and there's four martial people beating on each other, and 3 out of the 4 of them had trip, like very good trip checks, so they were just constantly tripping each other, and it was a big trip fest and whatever. The mage fight was a whole completely different story, and the most insane point of the entire fight was there's a point where the vampire was stuck in a black mass tentacle, like a black mass of tentacles, with trying to get out of a web spell with a pit underneath him, while maintaining a bunch of defensive spells, and created a wall of fire in front of him. And the druid had grown his wolf companion to an enormous size, gave him spider climbing, so this giant wolf was climbing on the ceiling above the flaming web tentacles, trying to bite down on the vampire as he was casting offensive spells. And the vampire was trying to hop out of all of this bullshit to get away so that he could cast spells more efficiently. But this fucking wolf was chasing him around while the other casters were still just like nuking him. And it was complete insanity. Like trying to figure out the reach to is he grappled here? Is he going to be grappled if he tries to attack here? How far can he move? How many concentration checks does he have to make? It was a fucking disaster. And after that point, all of the fights were really straightforward. They fought like a purple worm, which is like the most straightforward high-level fight you can do. It's a giant fucking worm. You hit it. So, like...
Somehow, the fact that the vampire was hopping makes it all much more hilarious.
Well, see, that was the thing, is I specifically wanted to use that because one of my players was a trip build, and he was tripping shit all the time. So I always had to make them fight larger creatures occasionally so that he couldn't trip them, because getting your enemies tripped constantly is really annoying. So he bitched about that, and he was like, we're always fighting large and huge creatures, I can't trip them. I'm like, alright. So I found a medium-sized creature that was untrippable. These hopping vampires are untrippable.
That's fantastic. No, we've had some pretty awesome moments. In a similar related thing, the leader of our pack, we went on this sort of Vision Quest / Wild West spin-off episode, and the big bad...
Oh, you told me about this.
Yeah, we were chasing a were coyote and into a pocket dimension. It all got we were trapped in this Wild West town, and the big fight happened, and it all came to a head, and he was sort of on the floor, the big bad guy standing over him while the rest of us were quite distracted, and he just pulls out this massive sword and chops the guy's feet off. Gets the sheriff badge we were hired to take, and just goes, right, we're done, let's go. It was that. I mean, that's in an attempt to segue us onto the last topic. That's one of the things that I've discovered going from computer game roleplay, video game roleplay to tabletop, is you don't realise, how limiting they are. I mean, like Baldur's Gate, etc., they're awesome, and quite often there's like 7 or 8 ways to do a particular quest, and that sounds like a lot, but then as soon as you sit down in tabletop, you're like, no, I could literally do anything. I could choose to ignore this quest even.
Yeah. Play a mage.
I do find it fun. Like if I was just going to say, I find it fun if I play something like Baldur's Gate or Icewind Dale or Neverwinter Nights. I find it fun every time I have a conversation. I try to think of a few other things that I could say that aren't there and wonder about how they could react to it. Just because I find it interesting, like thinking, okay, well, this guy's giving me hassle over this. I've got these responses, but I wouldn't say that. I wonder what would happen if I said this.
Yeah, but I think it's kind of a misnomer that because this has been happening, and this argument's been made in recent years, especially since the first Mass Effect got really big, is that you don't necessarily need to have a incredibly open role-playing game and like options in an RPG for it to be a good RPG, because obviously a lot of games are good for numerous reasons, but
I agree.
But like the funny thing is, in video games, you'll never get those moments where, for instance, a friend of mine was running a game. He was running like a Star Wars game. He told me about this, and this is just one example of millions that people have experienced, especially DMs who get pissed off about it. Is like you have a close encounter with like the main villain or something, right? Like the DM expects you to just fuck up and run because this guy's gonna jack you up. There's no way you can survive. It's supposed to be a close call or whatever. And in this particular game, I think there was like a super Mandalorian general guy. He was like the main bad guy or something. He was chasing him down in like a fighter, and they were in space. And like apparently the Jedi player decided to be a straight up baller and threw caution to the wind, and he jumped out of his fighter who was being chased and used the Force to land on the Mandalorian's fighter, cut the hatch open, and killed him with a lightsaber. And then the main villain of the campaign was dead way earlier than he was supposed to be.
Yeah, that happens.
Take note.
Yeah, I think that's the moments that define like role-playing games versus computer games, because you just can't do that in a computer game, no matter how limiting the choice. No matter how limiting the choices in the role-playing games, computer games will always be more limited.
If it wasn't for the fact that everyone does know what an RPG means in video games, I would say that they really need reclassifying as something else, because there's so many various different things that you could call an RPG. Like, I mean, something like The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead, to me, that's more a role-playing game than Skyrim is. Like that, I'd call either a role-playing game or perhaps an interactive storytelling experience or something like that. But then Skyrim is, while it's great, it's not. You're not really playing a role so much. You are.
There's
I suppose,
a difference.
But
it
depends what you add to it and take out of it.
Yeah,
there's a difference.
We'll never ever agree on some kind of classification for anything that's vague like that. I mean, for instance, when you call somebody a gamer today, you think, oh, they play Call of Duty and blah, 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 blah. 20, 30 years ago, if you called somebody a gamer, they're like, oh, that's some weird nerd who plays D&D in his mom's basement. Like, it's just labels like that. They're interchangeable.
Vin Diesel plays D&D.
Yeah. I forgot about that.
Yeah. To me, computer role-playing... Yeah, just a quick one. To me, computer role-playing games are games based on, role-playing games. But they don't need to have roles. They just need stats to qualify, so everything can go in.
Yeah.
it's
So,
pointless to
would
discuss
that
it.
include like football games these days? Because a lot of people don't realize this, but if you're picking up the newest like Madden or something, there are RPG elements in Madden. It's just funny to think about that.
No. It's not just RPG elements because, well,
Yeah,
Devil May Cry has that, but you need some
yeah,
limiting factor as
definitely.
well. Yeah, I think that's the difference. In Devil May Cry, you are expected to go to top and top off every skill, every style, every weapon, and so on. In RPGs, you are expected to be constrained and have a role or a class
To
or
be
something
honest,
that
a lot of
constrains you.
action games like Arkham Asylum and all those, I usually don't like the way they implement RPG elements. Usually I feel like it's a little too forced. And like I understand the idea is to let you choose how you progress like in the abilities you get. It A lot of the times you don't really have much context as to what they do anyway. So I don't know. I just feel like I'm like that looks good. I'll pick it. There's no real investment there. So I don't know. I think they do that with some of the like Marvel
Yeah,
Ultimate
there's
Alliance
that.
games and stuff like that. That's a little better because it's more RPG in other ways too. Which those are
Um, I'm I've been playing the original Paper Mario again recently, the one on the N64, and that has, you sort of level up and stuff, and that has a lot of stuff which is great. It has a lot of customization, and you advance in the way you want to advance. But the second you come to upgrading your allies, I mean, it's really crap how you do it, quite frankly,
yeah, it
because you
is.
find these little boxes around the world and you knock them, and then you're like, okay, pick a character you want to upgrade, and it's like, okay, what does upgrading them do?
Yeah, see,
Fuck if I know. Just
paper. I like Paper Mario, but it's not the same. Mario RPG was where it was at, man. Mario RPG was a true RPG. I guess nobody else played it. I'm all alone.
Nope.
no, I really
No.
want to, but no, sadly.
I was all Baldur's Gate as a kid.
Really? Dude, I did
In
not
fact,
have the
still
attention span
now.
for Baldur's Gate as a kid.
Oh no, I played it very, very badly. I had no clue what I was doing. I was just wandering around clicking stuff. It wasn't
Dude,
until I came
even
back to it about 5 years later that I was actually right, okay, let's try doing this properly.
even with my extensive experience playing D&D and tabletop at this point, I still when I start playing Baldur's Gate, I'm like, dude, fucking AD&D rules make no sense.
No.
It's not the AD&D rules I mind in Baldur's
Yeah.
Gate.
Taco.
In Baldur's Gate, the only thing that really bothers me is that, like, you walk everywhere,
Oh my
and it
god,
just takes forever.
yeah, that's what I hate
Yeah.
too. Ah,
The
fuck
second one's
that.
not so bad.
No, that one's still bad.
I still want to buy horses.
I mean, I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind if they just slowed you down for the combat and everywhere else you moved quickly, because that would be fine. But the combat is well, it's a clusterfuck at the best of times. But moving around when it's not in combat, it's just like, okay, I'll click here. Why can't I click further than that? Oh wait, the fog of war, and it's just like,
And you have like
why can't I just click in the
you
fog
have like
of war?
terrible
You know where you
pathfinding
wanna
with
go,
other
even
party
if you don't know the
members
map.
who like walk in
Yeah.
like a fucking other direction to come around and meet you somewhere else, and they wander into a group of enemies by themselves.
Yeah.
I mean,
I have to
how
admit,
many people just... Sorry.
that's because I have to admit, even I got to a point where I was just like, you know what, Immerwin, fuck you. Don't care how many times you say, "Hiya." If you're going to keep wandering off into ogres, I'm just going to leave you to do it.
I'm sorry that just reminds me of fucking Liliana from Dragon Age Origins, because we always make fun of her
Oh.
when you give her a gift, she always says, "How dear of you," and it just sounds so
that.
funny for some reason.
Fuck that bitch.
I
Seriously.
think one phrase everyone who played Baldur's Gate for an extended period of time, everyone got fed up of, has to be, you must gather your party before venturing forth.
Well, it turned
See,
into a joke later on.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Well,
I
that's a
enjoyed
classic.
that in Dragon Age 1 when you try and leave. It says it on screen rather than the guy saying it.
Yeah. It says it in KOTOR also, I think.
That was a
They had a
cool
similar
one.
thing in the first Fable, where it's like if your health got low, it was like, your health is low. Do you have any potions or food?
Oh, that's so annoying.
It's like, I know my health is low.
Well-
Fuck off.
Well, I love
I
the
hated that.
Baldur's, or not Baldur's, fuck, what's it called? Gauntlet, like Gauntlet Legends and stuff. If you guys ever played those games.
yeah.
And I love the
No.
announcer's voice is just so awesome. It's so great to say things in his voice, like Blue Knight needs food badly, like that kind of stuff. That game was fun.
But no, I'm on a similar note. Actually, I'm playing through the Mass Effect trilogy from the very first game again, and I noticed in Lair of the Shadow Broker, where there's a scene where Liara is hacking the door on the Shadow Broker ship, and Shepard actually makes a comment about how, remember when you used to be able to just slap Omnigel on everything? Because obviously in the first game, if you failed to hack something, you could just override it with Omnigel.
Yeah.
And I love little references like that
Dude,
in games themselves.
That particular DLC
and
is like chock full of them. Like they talk about the Mako too.
Everyone says that that's the best one, and I've yet to play it. But I think Fable 2 had a similar reference to that,
No,
where back to the potions or food thing I mentioned, it has a little bit of lore on the guildmaster of the old guild, and I think it said he was found he was found dead with it carved into his head or something. Something really horrible like that.
Yeah, I think everybody hated him. Like every players of Fable would hate him because he was just so annoying. It was a nice little reference.
And
in
of course
Fable
there's
2.
Although I was really disappointed with the direction it took, but I won't go into that actually.
And of course there's
yeah.
Mass Effect reference in Dragon Age.
Oh yeah, I mean they go back and forth with references all the time.
Yeah, there was a Dragon Age
Yeah.
reference in Mass Effect.
Yeah, in the
Have you seen it?
when you get
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with either of these, to be honest.
Well,
we're
they're also
getting off topic
characters.
slightly.
They're characters named after other characters and all that kind of stuff.
No, there was a in one of the DLCs.
Oh, yeah, I
yes,
remember her name.
Kasumi. Shepard goes in like a museum exposition kind of thing, and he finds different species and finds one of the beasts from Dragon Age, and there was a sign underneath saying, "Oh, where's that beast from?"
Yeah,
or
I
something
like the
like that.
subtle references. How in Baldur's Gate, you can find the portraits of the characters from the Dungeons and Dragons TV show in one of the shops in the second.
Really? They have some
they're on the
really
wall.
like. One of the things I do occasionally to pass the time is like look up Easter eggs in games and stuff like that. And one of the best franchises for that is Elder Scrolls has some of the weirdest Easter eggs out of like any game series.
They've got ashes for
Fallout
four
as well
members.
has some pretty great ones.
Yeah, one of the weirdest ones I have ever read about, you can look it up later because I don't want to try and explain it because I don't remember the whole thing, is the origin of the like glitched sword Elton brand. It's like a different version of.
Yes.
Yeah, did you read about that? That was fucking weird as hell.
Yeah, I've heard of that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I know about it a little bit, but it's weird. Yeah, Elder Scrolls is great
they're
in that
awesome
regard.
about that stuff. And Mike, handles the bulk of it, I guess.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I think Fallout is easily as good as Elder Scrolls for references. I mean, I can't remember any from Fallout 1, but Fallout 2 had references to like Chronicles of Riddick and other films. Fallout New Vegas, I mean, you've got the Indiana Jones type character in a refrigerator. But there are some really brilliant references in there that do make you laugh if you see them.
Yeah, I want to say Indiana Jones and Star Wars are the two most referenced things in video games because I see Indiana Jones references all over the place in games.
I can't think of any other than that fridge one.
There was a fridge exploding joke gag with the character who I think he was a reoccurring character who parodied Indiana Jones in WoW. I don't remember what his name was, but they had that. Indiana Jones's corpse can be found in Morrowind and I'm pretty sure Oblivion and Skyrim. Like
I found it in Morrowind once. Yeah.
Yeah, in Morrowind it's like half a skeleton named Indy and there's like a giant boulder behind him.
Yeah.
Oh, is that one? I've seen it.
Yeah,
I
it's
didn't know it
Indiana
was
Jones.
an Indiana Jones reference. I should notice
Pretty
though.
awesome.
But yeah, I think we should probably wrap there.
Yeah, and have you played Bloodlines?
What, Vampire the Masquerade?
No, I played Redemption.
Yeah, that one.
Well,
Oh, you've
well, I
played
tried
Redemption.
to.
Ooh, nice.
It's a very broken game.
Yeah, I didn't get too far into Redemption
It's
either.
incredibly
I did play Masquerade
atmospheric.
quite a bit.
The thing is the problem with Vampire Redemption, I love the world it's set in, but really dislike the game. So I more or less just have to activate the cheats, just so I can spend time in the world.
Yeah, you just have to do that. The AI is ridiculous. So if you fight a giant rat, your AI partners would just go, "Oh, a giant rat," and activate every discipline they have, wasting all the blood.
Yeah, I'm on the tail end of Persona 3 right now, and I really like the game, but combat drives me crazy in it because in the fourth game you can control your party members, and in the third game you can only give them vague directions. And I feel like I'm ordering around a bunch of retarded 5-year-olds who can't do anything by themselves and constantly actively fuck me over. It's awful. Makes me want to kill myself.
Please don't.
Yeah, it's annoying.
Yeah, let's finish the podcast first.
Oh no.
In fact, on
What
that
else
note,
is?
we should probably. I think we should.
Yeah.
Probably, I think we've pretty much covered everything. I'm sure we'll be happy to return to this subject at some point. I'm sure there's plenty of people out there who'd like to have their say.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we'll just sum up now.
Perhaps a newbie with questions somewhere.
That would be me.
Yeah, well, I'm sure
Yeah,
the
if
next time
anyone's
we
got any
do
last
it,
points.
next time we do it, I'm sure you'll have more experience blunders, so you can bring more like experiences. Because I'm sure between me, Meow, and Dopo, we could talk for hours about just like funny shit that has happened in games.
Definitely. Yeah, I'll let you know
yeah.
what happens with this Nexus crawler when I let go of his ears.
Oh god, yeah. I'll tell you guys if I ever get out of the abyss.
You'll probably die, but
Well,
still.
at least you actually managed to land on its face rather than in its face.
Yeah, he didn't make me roll it, the GM, which is probably just as well.
I think for next
But
time,
I don't
turned out
like
to be-
that.
Go ahead.
I was going to say it turned out to be the right choice because then it immediately turned most things in the room into silver. So pretty much the only safe place to be was on the Nexus crawler.
Oh, yeah. That reminds me. Like mages in World of Darkness are ridiculous. They can do everything they want
Oh, particularly if
on
you
the
can
fly.
fight.
And there was this. Yeah,
I seem
yeah.
to remember. Sorry.
And in the Old Mage, there was this character who was the son of Ether, and yeah, these guys are mad doctors. They have all sorts of crazy gadgets and stuff, and he had this gadget to turn spectral matter into physical matter, and used it to turn the hair of a werewolf
Son
into
of a bitch.
silver.
That's
Because
funny.
werewolves are part spirit.
I seem to remember reading about a World of Darkness character. I think it was World of Darkness at least. I think he was a Malkavian or something, and his like ultimate power was that he could literally just believe, and if he believed something, it existed, no matter what it was, even if it was like, oh, nobody else exists. For him, that would be true.
Yeah, there's a couple of powers here. The Malkavians have deny, and they just
Yeah,
refuse
that's
to
the one I
believe
was
something
thinking of.
exists, and it doesn't exist. Yeah, that's quite fun. You can walk through walls, or just disbelieve
The one I'm
weapons
looking forward
or
to
stuff.
is because my werewolf is a shadow wolf, shadow lord, who basically one of their powers when they're each level 6, they can get dominance, which basically depending how you roll, you can tell someone to do something, and if they would normally do it, they'll do it without thinking. But if you're a well, it could even be something that they would never conceivably do under their own steam power. Now, I don't want this to beat bosses, etc., because that's a fun use for it, but a bit easy. Basically, it's going to be interesting that if someone in my pack starts moaning at me, I can tell them to go fuck themselves. Use dominance and see what happens.
Yeah. The premise of werewolf is that everything has a soul, so even the objects, the plants, etc., all of it has a soul, and werewolves can affect it with their magic. And one of the first powers they get is they can scare away the spirit of an item, and it stops working. And they can make knives stop working, which is pretty ridiculous.
You scare the edge off the knife, essentially.
Well, I think
World of Darkness is one of those I really want to get into. I mean, both World of Darkness and BattleTech are two that I've always wanted to try but never had the opportunity to.
I'm glad I didn't, because they're so insane that you wouldn't believe them. I didn't even get into the Exalted stories I had, because that system makes for some of the most bizarre, insane fights you can imagine. They're like they're Dragon Ball Z level insane. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
As I say,
I haven't played Exalted. Actually, but I've heard from a friend of mine. He had a martial arts style which was he was beating people with his blood. And
I was
God.
I was actually playing a martial artist guy who was based off of Bang Shishigami from Blaze Blue, and he was like he had some style or something where he was proficient with every part of his body, and it didn't list it, but it was implied that he was also proficient with using his penis as a weapon, which I never did, but I contemplated it. Yeah, but yeah, that game is just completely bananas. And one of the things I like about it is there's kind of this rule where a lot of the things that happen in the game are so insane that the player kind of needs some room to author things. And there's this kind of room. I don't know if it's. I didn't actually read the rule book. I was just taught to play. But there's this kind of rule in the game where when you're deciding what to do, because there's this stunning system where you can get bonus dice for describing what you're doing really well and creatively, and the stunning system requires basically that you make up shit as you go. So you can say there's a tree here because you need it for your stunt. As long as you're in an area that would have trees, there's a tree there. So your guy uproots the tree and hits the guy the enemy in the face with it or whatever. But it's just kind of cool how you can, just say stuff is there and it's there, because as long as it makes sense and, you're free to go. It doesn't use a mini system like D&D does, so.
I do certainly like the idea of getting benefits from really describing well. I mean, because a lot of people, when playing D&D or whatever, will just say, okay, I attack the Minotaur with my longsword.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just okay.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, in this game, you'd literally have
there's
somebody sitting there for fucking 3 minutes straight explaining what they're doing in one round.
It can backfire. I had to do a roll because I happened to use the word nonchalantly. Rather than just saying, yeah, I'm going to go and stand by that wall in case I come down the alleyway, I said I was going to stand there nonchalantly, so that if they walk past I can suddenly leap into action. And because it was nonchalant, I had to roll a socialise and something else roll.
Oh god.
Because I had happened to say I was doing it with nonchalance.
You have to be especially careful of what you say as the DM. I remember a campaign run by my brother. He was describing someone, and the description he used was that the guard was 6 foot tall and easily as wide as he was tall, and I was like, "What? So he's a square?" And he was obviously talking in metaphor, but
was he in fact?
I was just taking the piss out of it. But yeah, you do have to be careful what you say, because people will be listening and they will take the piss or they will take advantage of what you say. They will pick holes in it.
Yeah.
And on that bombshell.
Have you read the story about the? Yeah. Have you read the story about the Dread Gazebo? So the DM says, "Oh, there's a gazebo in the garden," and one of the players thinks it's a monster, so he attacks it and stuff. It's a famous story. You can look it up.
Seen that or heard that one.
But yeah, I think we should probably call it a night at that point.
Yeah, I just want to bring up for next time 2 topics I just thought of. One of them is how to get people into the game or into a game you're playing, like somebody who doesn't have experience, we can talk about like how you should go about doing that, I guess, because that's a pretty important point for playing the game. Like
Yeah,
I just
that's
recently
fine.
had a friend, like I'm getting him in the game still, but it's a process. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, like you were saying earlier, D&D 3.5 is practically impossible to get people into just because it's so needlessly complex in places.
Pathfinder does a pretty good job introducing new players to it, so I definitely recommend Pathfinder.
Yeah, Pathfinder is fine. I recently played a D&D 4 campaign where we just had.
What little of 4 I've played, I wasn't too keen on. I mean, it has some nice ideas, but some of it was just a bit, so what?
Even though I've never played it before as a Pathfinder player, I have to hate 4.0. It's because all Pathfinder players do.
Well, we'll talk about the different games you can play and how to get other players into it next time. I think this is definitely going to be a popular topic, so I think we should do a couple of different ones.
At least for us.
Yeah, but
We are our own listeners.
Yeah. Well, okay. In that case, we'll say bye now. Thanks for listening. I've been Blunderboy. With me has been Chairman Meow.
Bye.
Dopo.
Bye-bye.
And, of course, Fappy.
Wait, if you were Blunderboy and he was Meow, who are you now?
That's secret. Now I'm Meow, and he's Fappy.
So
Then who's Fappy?
So are we? We're importing Street Fighter from Japan into America right now. That's what we're doing. Vega is Balrog. Balrog is Bison, and oh my God, what's happening?
I'm role-playing Fappy. Right
I'm actually now Final Fantasy 3.
What?
You have to work out which one I am. No, that really confused me because they changed all the numbers for that, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. The 3 was 6, or 6 was 3,
Confused
or
the hell out of me.
whatever.
Yeah. Really don't understand that. But anyway, yes. Bye-bye.
And I recommend Mortal Kombat, and I'll let you figure out which one I'm talking about.
Always end with a Yahtzee quote.
Okay. Well, I'll go play Mortal Kombat then.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.